This is Wrestling with Wrestling Past and Present. I'm Tim Kurt.
I'm Roland Hewlett.
And today on episode 37, we're transitioning back to the WWF. We're covering SummerSlam 1996.
With probably my all-time favorite wrestler, Shawn Michaels, on top against Vader.
Mm-hmm.
Like you had mentioned last week, the infamous Boiler Room Brawl match. So, I mean, I know we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but it's that's what we're going to be looking forward to here later on in the show.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely looking forward to breaking down those two matches. You have a total of 8 matches with one dark match, and the dark match actually has some pretty big names in it. You have Stone Cold Steve Austin getting a win over Yokozuna. Match didn't go very long, only went 2 minutes. I believe this is the match where the ropes break. It's an untelevised match, but I believe the ropes break in this one. I'm pretty sure Bruce Pritchard has gone into, I think on the Yokozuna episode that they did, went into this match a little bit. And Steve Austin wasn't really as big as he is now, or was in 98. I think 97, 98 is where they really picked up momentum. 96 is kind of the start of his popularity. So that's probably why you're not seeing this match on the main card.
Yeah, he, like you said, he wasn't red hot yet. He was starting to, build some steam, but he wasn't quite there yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Yokozuna, he might have been the best big man in the business for some of the stuff he could have done.
Yeah.
For his size and some of the stuff he could do. I mean, I know there's some guys like Bam Bam and stuff like that. They could do like flips and everything else and whatever. But for a guy that's 500 plus to be able to do side kicks and do moves that, I mean, that's impressive for anybody, let alone a 500-pounder. So I think Yoko, the couple of years span that he had there where he was, red hot, where he was the champion and stuff, and he was a monster. He definitely had the WWE. He was one of the best villains the WWE had at that time. And it was weird that when he came back and he was having weight issues, they tried to make him a face, which doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah.
He should have been just this bad Japanese badass sumo wrestler villain. They should have never tried to turn him. And then the rest was history after that. So unfortunately.
So we open up SummerSlam 1996 with a singles match. You have Owen Hart and Savio Vega. Owen Hart's going to get the victory here in about 13 and a half minutes. They had a storyline here where Owen Hart's arm is in a cast, which it's not really broken, but he's trying to use it as an advantage. There's a point in the match where he tries to use it, and the referee kind of admonishes him, and the announcers say if he uses the cast, he's going to be disqualified. Well, you know what's going to come later in the match. Owen Hart tries to use it, or does use it, behind the referee's back, which I don't know how the referee missed it, because the referee was like right there. So I don't know how they got away with saying the referee did not see Owen Hart using the cast.
There was a couple of those during this pay-per-view.
Yeah.
The Jake Roberts, Jerry Lawler match, not to get ahead, but I mean, there was also a spot in there where it's like, how did the referee not see that?
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely, I totally agree with that. But yeah, it was a better starter than last week's show.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't Ming and Barbarian.
Yep.
So. But it's still, I mean, any match that Owen Hart has is going to be a good match. And Savio Vega, I think, might have been a little bit of an underrated guy, but he was a great utility player.
Mm.
Like, Jim Ross talks about, everybody can't bat cleanup. Well, Savio Vega was the guy that, batted 7th or 8th, and he played second, short, third. He played whatever you needed, he would do. And he was a great enhancement talent to help get guys over, but he also, had a little bit of steam at times too. So he had a pretty good run in the WWE.
No, I agree. I thought the match was pretty good. Like you said, I think it was a solid opener. Owen Hart's probably never gonna have a bad match.
Like I said, it's the same thing I said last week about Rey Mysterio. If there's a bad one out there, I've never seen it.
Yeah. So I thought it was a solid opener. Next up, you have a 4-way elimination match for the WWF Tag Team titles. You have the Smoking Guns, which is Bart Gunn and Billy Gunn, with Sonny. They're going to pick up the victory here over the New Rockers with Leif Cassidy and Marty Jannetty, and the Godwins, Henry O. Godwin and Phineas I. Godwin, and the Body Donnas, which were Skip and Zip, which were Chris Candido and Tom Pritchard. A lot of names in this one. Marty Jannetty's been in the news lately for some unfortunate...
Yeah, supposedly when he was a teenager, he killed a guy.
Yeah.
Made him disappear. I don't whatever. And the whole whole New Rockers thing. The minute you said the New Rockers, I giggled because it's like, yeah, that didn't work out very well.
No.
Leaf Cassidy, Al Snow.
Mm-hmm.
In case anybody didn't know that, that's who Al Snow was. Leaf Cassidy. So yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much all there is. I mean, this one, it was okay. I think, good placement on the card, really. I think, but it was a decent match, but I think it was more for filler purposes only. Nothing too exciting happening in this one. And
it was a solid, like you said, filler match. It wasn't.
Yeah.
Well, and then you imagine being in creative when they came up with Phineas and Henry Godwin's thing. They're like, we're gonna have these hog farmers.
Yep.
And we're gonna name him Henry O. Godwin. Get it, hog. Then we're gonna have one that's Phineas I. Godwin. Get it, pig. Yeah. So yeah, boxing gimmick special there.
Yep.
Those guys. But yeah, the little bit of a swerve finish at the end, sort of where they hit the slop drop. And then Bart Gunn came off the top rope. The referee was distracted because they were trying to get the slop on Sonny.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it ended. It was, typical WWE kind of, thrown together. Here's a match with 4 guys or 8 guys that, need to be on the show. It told a little bit of a story, but, it kept the Smoking Guns, kept the titles. And this is back when they'd already cut their hair. They weren't they weren't the mustache wearing cowboy hat Smoking Guns as much as they used to be. Bart Gunn had cut his hair already, and Billy had cut his hair shorter. But it was what it was, like you said. It's hard to explain without watching it. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but again, like you said, more filler than anything, I think.
Yeah, no, that's my sentiment exactly. Next up was a singles match. You have Psycho Sid getting a win over the British Bulldog with Jim Cornette in about 6.5 minutes here. British Bulldog, a very good wrestler. Psycho Sid is Psycho Sid.
Must not have been softball season.
Yes. Yeah, listen to the Sid episode on Bruce Pritchard for that reference. I thought it was, it is what it is. I mean, it wasn't a great match, but again, I think it was more filler.
Well, and it was another swerve kind of finish at the end where Bulldog hit the running power slam.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Cornette comes out, and Clarence Mason was already out with Bulldog. And there was you can tell there was some dissension between those guys because, Clarence Mason and Cornette and Bulldog, Owen, like all those guys, Yoko at one point, they were all kind of in the same stable together.
Yeah.
So there was some dissension there, and it caused a distraction because Bulldog was trying to keep Cornette from getting involved with Clarence Mason. They were kind of toe-to-toe, and then choke slam by Sid, power bomb, boom, match over.
Match is over. That's it. Moving along, we have another singles match. You have Goldust with Marlena, who's Terry Runnels, if you didn't know, getting a win over Mark Merrill with Sable in 11 minutes.
Who is now Rena Lesnar.
Rena Lesnar. They had a little bit of a storyline going on here. I guess they had some sort of bikini contest on the Free For All show, which was their pre-show back then. And I guess Goldust was kind of lusting over Sable. And Jim Ross said that he asked Marlena about that, and Marlena goes, "Whatever makes Goldust happy, makes me happy." But I guess Mark Merrow probably not a big fan of that. So they had a little bit of a storyline going in here. I thought a decent match. Goldust, we've talked about Goldust, Dustin Rhodes many times, how good of a talent he is. I think he's better now than he was back then, to be honest.
I was just going to say the same thing.
Yeah. And Mark Merrow could go. I mean, he's Johnny B. Bad. I was just about to say Johnny B. Bad. He might be a little bit underrated for what he could do. So I think they put off a decent match here.
He hit a shooting star press with Vince McMahon he'd never seen in his life.
Mm-hmm. What a maneuver.
I've never seen something like that ever. Yeah, you have. This guy does it a lot. Anyways, but it had a name. It was the Wild Thing. It's not like it was some move that everybody's like, "What do you call that?" No, it had a name. You've seen it. No, come on, Vince. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. That stuck out like a sore thumb. Vince going, "Oh, I've never seen that before in my life." You sure, Vince? But yeah, so it was definitely. And to speak of that too, it was an interesting commentary team of Mr. Perfect, Vince McMahon, and Jim Ross.
Yeah.
Little different compared to what we're used to, and it was like I said, it was what it was, and like you said, it might have been somewhat filler too to get to that 3-hour window of wrestling.
Mm-hmm. Speaking on the commentary team, it felt like Mr. Perfect, I think, said about 5 words like throughout the whole show.
He definitely had a lot of sound bites.
Yeah.
He wasn't saying a whole hell of a lot at length, anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was definitely an interesting team. Well, and you fast forward to the show we just did, WCW. Kurt Hennig was in that match.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
He had retired or stopped being an in-ring competitor due to back injuries, spinal injuries, supposedly. But yet you fast forward 2 years later and he's in WCW wrestling still.
Yeah.
So.
Next up is another singles match. You have Jerry Lawler getting a win over Jake Roberts in just over 4 minutes here. Before the match, they announced Mark Henry as an Olympian and the world's strongest man. So that's your debut of Mark Henry here. He's going to join them.
He even said that, too, that it's the newest signed WWF wrestler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's going to join commentary for this match. The whole storyline here is they're playing on Jake Roberts' addiction. Jerry Lawler is just chastising him about his addiction. He comes in with a big bottle, I think it was champagne or wine or something, in a bag like Jake Roberts used to carry his snake in. He also brings 2 bottles of Jim Beam. So they're just playing. There's a lot of gaga and a lot of stuff before the match actually happened. Then Jake Roberts puts the snake on Jerry Lawler to get back at him. I thought the actual match itself, I'm a big Jerry Lawler fan, but this wasn't really that good of a match, to be honest. Finish comes, Jerry Lawler takes a Jim Beam bottle, hits Jake Roberts in the throat, and gets the 1, 2, 3. And then after the match, he tries to pour the Jim Beam down Jake Roberts' throat. Mark Henry goes and stops him. So I thought the actual wrestling part of it wasn't very good, but it's a pretty, for 1996, it's a pretty realistic storyline, and this is pre-Attitude Era, so you're not getting a whole lot of these realistic storylines at this time. So I thought the storyline was pretty good.
Yeah, it was. This match doesn't age well, but it's also a storyline that WWE uses a lot. They use it with CM Punk and Chris Jericho. They're using it right now with Sheamus and Jeff Hardy.
Yep.
They use it with Scott Hall
in WCW.
Yeah, they even used it in WWE afterwards when he came back.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, it's unfortunate that they expose these people's actual addictions and drinking problems. I mean, if anybody hasn't watched The Resurrection of Jake the Snake Roberts, I invite you to watch it.
It's very good.
Amazon Prime member, it's free.
Yeah.
So it's a great documentary on just how bad Jake's addiction was and what it led his life to be. So I guess in retrospect, not the best thing to do, considering the guy's life spiraled out of control for about 10 years after this.
Yeah.
So, but it was what it was. It was, again, more gaga and filler, and it doesn't age well. It's definitely in poor taste to pick on a guy that has a drinking problem.
Mm-hmm.
So it is what it is. And the WWE, like I said, for some reason they like doing that stuff, and you look back on it and it's like, wow, that was pretty tasteless.
No, I agree. Next up is the Boiler Room Brawl between Mankind and The Undertaker. Mankind going to get the win. A long match here, about 26 minutes, a little over 26 minutes here. Basically, they're fighting in a boiler room, but the winner, you have to possess The Undertaker's urn, which Paul Bearer brought out to the ring before the match began. I mean, it's a brawl, not really a technical wrestling match by any means. It's a brawl in the boiler room. There's a swerve at the end with Paul Bearer hitting The Undertaker with the urn, and that allows Mankind to get the win. So I thought it was a pretty entertaining match. I think it was a little long for my liking. I mean, almost 27 minutes of a match here. It's a little long for me, considering what it was. It wasn't a real technical wrestling match. But overall, I thought it was pretty entertaining, and you really didn't see that swerve coming at the end there.
If I were in the building when they did this match, I would be so pissed. You see, they rolled out these TVs.
Yes,
like remember when you were in school?
In school, I was just thinking that.
Remember when you were in school, kids, and the teacher would go down the hall and get the TV on wheels?
Yep.
There was one of these on each side of the friggin' ring.
Yep.
This was their idea of broadcasting it to the people in the stands. Honestly, the TV was probably 30
Yeah.
And they're right next to the ring, and they're like, "Here you go." And the fans in the building are like, "We can't see shit." Like I don't even know. I would have been so pissed that they didn't have. How can you have a match like that and not have a way to broadcast so everybody can see it?
I know.
Especially the people that are there.
Yeah.
Like you should have had a screen. I mean, you don't have to have a Titantron, but put up a damn bed sheet or something with a do something. No, we're gonna roll out these 2 TVs that we stole from the high school down the street, and we gotta get them back before Monday morning because they need them for geography class. But yeah, no, I could not. That was the one thing that stuck out to me. I'm like, that's how they're gonna broadcast this to the people in the building.
Yeah,
they're gonna put it on TVs.
Yep.
Small stand TVs with wheels on. And then so when they get back out to the ring though, that bump that Mankind took off the apron.
Mm-hmm.
When they were both on the outside and the Undertaker pulled the ropes back and Mankind ate it off the apron, he hit nothing but concrete.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's made a career of doing that, but still, like, every time he does it, that thud, you're like, ugh, like, it hurts me watching it. It's like, oh God, that hurt. Like, that had to, you can't fake falling on concrete.
Mick Foley's taking 1 or 2, significant bumps in his career.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I mean, 1 or 2 just from the Undertaker.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so it is, like you said, it might have been a little bit long, and if I was in the stadium, I would have been so pissed that this was their way to broadcast to people. Those are the 2 things I took away from it. The match itself, like you said, it was a brawl. It was what it was supposed to be advertised as, and it was good for that. It didn't lack anything in that nature, other than the fact that it wasn't, a wrestling match per se. But the swerve at the end when the Undertaker actually had, after that bump, the Undertaker was in the ring down doing his on his 1 knee pose, waiting for Paul Bearer to give him his urn, and he kind of looks up at him, and Paul Bearer turns around, and then Mankind comes in, attacks him, and they swerve him again, and yeah, like you said, it was. I don't think anybody saw that coming, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
They were able to swerve everybody on that. But like I said, if I was in the building in '96. I would not have been happy that this is the plan they had to show everybody how this match went.
No, I agree with you there. All right, next up is our main event for the World Heavyweight Championship. You have Shawn Michaels with Jose Lothario going to get a win over Vader with Jim Cornette in about 23 minutes. A lot of back and forth action here. The match actually started and stopped like 2 or 3 times. There was a count out victory by Vader, but Jim Cornette says, no, we want the title. He challenges Shawn Michaels to continue. They do. Shawn Michaels then gets disqualified by hitting Vader with Cornette's tennis racket. And Jim Cornette calls him a coward and tells him if you have any guts, you'll continue the match. And they do. And Shawn Michaels ends up winning with a moonsault, standing moonsault off the top rope for the 1, 2, 3. So I thought it was kind of creative what they did here. I mean, they broke up the match a little bit, but I thought it was kind of a creative finish. I thought it was a decent match. I think it's kind of a clash of styles. You have Shawn Michaels, who's kind of a smaller guy against this big guy Vader, but I thought they held their own and put off a decent main event here.
Yeah, well, and you got to remember too, that was also after Cornette told Vader to go to the top ropes to try his own moonsault. Yeah. Vader was going to do it from the second rope, and Cornette's, no, stop, go up all the way, and then crashes and burns. And that pretty much led to the downfall of Vader, and then Shawn Michaels retaining. Like you said, 2 different styles in this match, but it was, for what it was, a really good match. I don't, I might be somewhat biased because I am a Shawn Michaels mark. I'm not afraid to say that. I grew up a big fan of Shawn Michaels. Anything besides from the match in Saudi with Triple H when he came out of retirement, which was really bad when Kane's head fell off during the match. Aside from that, I don't think you're going to find a match where I'm like, wow, that sucked.
Yeah.
And the guys in that match even said how bad that was. You watched The Last Ride. All 4 of them were like, wow, that sucked. That was bad. But, Shawn Michaels, easily, in my opinion, the best technical wrestler of the 90s and 2000s when he made his return. People will argue, him, Bret Hart, or what about Ric Flair? And obviously there's guys that belong there too, but Shawn Michaels has to be in the top 5 for everybody, or you're not a wrestling fan.
Yeah,
he's not. Sorry. Like I said, you might like Bret more. Like for me, I never really liked Bret, but I still put him in the top 5. He's probably 5, but at the especially he might be even a little bit higher in that era. But still, Shawn was ahead of him in my opinion, just because Shawn did a little bit more flashy stuff in the ring. Brett was a little more technical. But yeah, any match that has Shawn Michaels in it, I'm going to love. And we already, we're going to get to see Shawn Michaels again next week, which was the second, like the reinvention of Shawn Michaels when he came back from his back injury.
Yeah.
So I'm happy with that. Anytime I can see Shawn Michaels is cool with me. So, but yeah, no, Vader, and I think Vader might be a little bit underrated too. Like we were talking about Yoko. Vader was one of those big guys that could do some impressive stuff for a guy that was 400 pounds. Absolutely,
he was very agile for a big man.
He has the distinction of always, like, if you talk to or if you listen to Pritchard's podcast, you listen to anybody that's wrestled against Vader, they would always talk about how smelly he was, how smelly his gloves were and stuff.
Yep.
They never washed them. Yep. So, like, that, I thought that was funny. Like, you're watching, Vader slap people in the head with those nasty gloves of his. But yeah, I think that, Leon White was definitely an underrated. It's too bad. It seems like the WWE, when they get guys, they either do one of two things. They either build them up or they don't know what to do with them.
Mm-hmm.
Vader was kind of in the middle. They built him up, but they still didn't really know what to do to get him to that next level. Plus, he got injured a little bit in there, too, so that didn't help. But I just feel like he's one of those guys, too, that could have had so much more traction in the WWF if they had a better plan of what to do with him. They had made him a monster and kept him. Like, when he first came in, he killed Gorilla Monsoon.
Yeah.
Like, that was his day. Like, he destroyed Gorilla Monsoon, who was the commissioner at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Or the president, or whatever. But he was the enforcer position for WWE.
The authority figure, yeah.
So, from there on out, he should have been destroying everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And he was to an extent, but still, it's just you feel like they dropped the ball a little bit, in my opinion, of what they could have done with him. Some of that was the injury, but some of that also was the WWF and WWE. Even to this day, still has. I mean, you get guys like Cesaro, who they just don't know what to do with.
Yeah.
And he might be the strongest pound-for-pound guy in the business.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the stuff he can do. So, I mean, it's unfortunate some of those guys that just don't get the push or the traction that they should get to be to that. Like, I mean, AJ Styles could have been one of those guys. He could have came in and been a mid-card guy. For some reason, he captivated them, and he's been able to keep going and keep his traction. But it's a crapshoot when you come in there, especially when you're an attraction somewhere else first.
So that is our rundown of SummerSlam 1996. I thought it was a pretty good show. I'm going to probably give it a 6 for a rating. If I had to recommend one match, it's kind of difficult. I actually probably would recommend the main event here. If I had to recommend one to watch.
Yeah, not to cut you off, but same here. There's not... the Boiler Room Brawl, for what it was a good, brawl. It wasn't a match. So, yeah... for wrestling, and it told the story, like you said. They had a couple of false finishes essentially, where they stopped the match, started it again,
mm-hmm.
And it told a pretty good story. So yeah, I agree. And like I said again, Shawn Michaels mark. So yeah.
So that is it for SummerSlam 1996. Coming up for you guys next week, we're going to continue with the SummerSlam theme. We're going to go fast forward a couple years to SummerSlam 2002. On top there, you have The Rock and Brock Lesnar for the title. So looking forward to breaking that one down. That happened about 18 years ago.
Yeah, listen to some of these names. I'm not going to give off the matches, but you had Kurt Angle, you had Rey Mysterio, you had Ric Flair, Chris Jericho, Eddie Guerrero, Edge, Rob Van Dam, Chris Benoit, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, Brock Lesnar, The Rock. There's some firepower on this show.
I think Test was involved in that show too. Don't forget him.
Oh yeah, well, I didn't name Test, and I skipped over Spike Dudley and Steven Richards. Those guys. Oh, I also didn't name Booker T and Goldust and the Un-Americans.
Yep.
But yeah, yes, you are correct. Test was involved in this match, and he actually fought the Undertaker.
Yep.
But yeah, no. It's one of those cards. Like when we look at shows, we go down the cards and we're like, ooh, or we're like, oh, there's like one good match or two. This show should be a fantastic one to watch.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be any oh, that was good, or like this should be a really. This show should be one of the best shows we've seen in recent. I don't know if it's going to live up to the ECW shows that we saw, but it should be close.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to watching that and breaking that down for you guys next week. All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Again, we'll be back next Saturday at 5 with SummerSlam 2002. Take care, and until then, I'm Tim Kurt.
And I'm Roland Hewlett.
And this is Wrestling with Wrestling Past and Present.